All right, we're going to continue talking about the special senses. And in this case, we're talking about vision, right? So again, same thing. We'll talk about the anatomy of the eye and then the physiology of the eye and then disorders. And along the way, we'll have some terminology. Okay, so learning outcomes. Okay, here's the eye. Again, pictures are worth 1,000 words, okay? So here, right, it says special anatomical structures. Okay. The eye itself is a sphere. I'm going to go to the picture. Okay. So the eye itself is a sphere, and it's actually just this thing, and it's hollow, okay? In the body, there's fluid. So here's this kind of spherical structure, and there's fluid inside, and the fluid is what keeps it open, okay? Now, the eye has an anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. So if you look here, anterior chamber, and if you look here, posterior chamber. And they are divided by the lens. Here's this lens, okay? What does the lens do? The lens helps focus the eye. Okay. So how do things work? Okay. So if you've ever, I hope this has never happened to you. If you've ever scratched your cornea, right? That clear part right here, that's the cornea. Okay. And light. So in this case, well, with hearing, sound was the stimulus, right? Vibrations, sounds. Okay. Now, with vision, light is the stimulus. So there's photons, right? They're energy, actually. And the photons are moving through, they're going to move through the cornea, move through the anterior chamber, and there's fluid in here, pass the lens. And what the lens does is it focuses the light to the back of the eye. And here's the posterior chamber. This is filled with fluid also. It's kind of gelatinous fluid. It's a clear gelatinous fluid. It's called humor, vitreous humor. And back here, this is where the retina is. And this is where the neurons, this is where the sensory receptors, you've heard of your cones and your rods, okay? They reside here. And the light will stimulate the cones and the rods, and then the process is called transduction, changing that stimulus, the light stimulus, into electrical impulses. And then via neurons, we're going to send the information through the optic nerve, that's cranial nerve number 2, through the optic nerve up to the brain, and it's in the back of the brain. I don't know if you guys remember, right? The vision, where we actually see, okay? So that's giving you kind of an overall picture. Your eye, can you move your eye? Look to the right, look to the left, look up, look down. So the eye itself, there's skeletal muscles that are attached to the eye that are going to help you with moving your eye, okay? The pupil is that opening, and then here, this is the iris. What the iris does, it's muscle, and it can constrict or dilate to help with how much light passes through the eye. So if it's nighttime, you're going to have less, you're going to have less light outside. The pupil is going to dilate to get light into the eye. If nighttime, right? If it's daytime and there's a lot of light outside, then the pupil is going to constrict, so you have less light going into the eye. So here, this is a really nice picture, right? So we could see the retina. Here, the choroid layer, there's blood vessels here to bring nourishment. And here's the sclera. The sclera is the white part of the eye. And the cornea, again, is the clear part. So this kind of gives us an overview, an anatomical overview. So if I go back, eye, right? Special anatomical structures that work together to facilitate sight. Really, the eyeballs, I know this sounds funny, but they're just kind of receptacles for light, okay? You don't see in your eyes. They take the light information, again, transduction happens, and then electrical impulses will take the information to your to your visual cortex, and it's there that you see, Okay, so cornea, that clear part that we see, if you have contact lenses, you're putting them right on top of the cornea. Pupil, that's, you know, the colored part of the eye, and so that can constrict or dilate to allow light to pass through. Lens, that's the hard part. That's an actual physical hard part of the eye that helps with focusing light. Vitreous body, that's the space, right, filled with the vitreous humor. That's the fluid, kind of gelatinous clear fluid. Light stimulates sensory receptors, the rods and the cones, and the retina. That's in the back of the eye, the innermost layer, or the innermost layer of the eye. Okay, so vision. How is vision possible? So you have to be able to move your eye. How much light gets in? Where does it focus? Where does it focus in the back? Okay, so that gives us an idea of nearsightedness and farsightedness. If people can't focus the light correctly, then that's where the visual problems come in, right? Being farsighted and not being able to focus on stuff that's close by, or being nearsighted and not being able to focus on stuff that's far away. Transmission of the resulting sensory impulses to the brain by the optic nerve, so cranial nerve number 2. So again, a table, the orbit, the eyeball muscles, 6 short muscles support rotary movement. Eyelids, of course, they're going to protect our eye. We have our eyelashes there protecting. Conjunctiva, right? So that's kind of that layer of tissue. Lacrimal apparatus, produce, stores, removes tears. There's actually like a little duct that goes from the eye to the nose. So if you're ever crying, like woohoo, and then you start, right? Because the fluid, your glands, your tear glands are up here, and then the fluid passes through and then goes down to your nose. And if you're crying, you're sniffling too because you're having that extra liquid. Eyeball, organ of vision. Sclera, again, that's the white part. It's kind of fibrous tissue. Cornea, right, that's in the front. Transparent anterior portion of the eyeball, which bends the light rays. Choroid, pigmented vascular. When we say vascular, we're always talking about blood. So there's blood there. Ciliary body, smooth muscle. We didn't talk about that, but you can move your lens a little bit, right? And as we get older, that elasticity goes down. And that's why when we get older, we need eyeglasses. A lot of people do. After the lovely age of 40, okay? A lot of people have to wear glasses because they're having problems with moving their lens. Iris, colored membrane, regulates the amount of light. Retina, in the back, innermost layer, photoreceptors, so the cones and the rods are there, translate the light waves focused on its surface into nerve impulses. The lens sharpens the focus on the retina. All right, so that's basically all of it, yeah? And then here's the actual picture. Again, this is the sagittal section, and this is a lateral view, and then you can look at all of this. So kind of really cool there. Okay, so external structures, orbit, right, where the eye sits, the orbit in the skull. It's actually made out of several bones, right, that are creating that space, that cavity where the eye sits. The external, right? Here, these are the skeletal muscles, right? And all muscles do, remember, they contract. So when they contract, they're going to move the eyeball side, up, down, and so on. More muscles looking at the anterior view. Eyelids, protecting the eyes, keep the eye lubricated. Eyelashes are going to help. Conjunctiva, right? Mucous membrane that lines the underside of the eye, reflects outer anterior. I'm not going to like pull my eye, right? But that kind of red, really nutrient rich layer, right? Lacrimal apparatus, right? So we're going to have the lacrimal gland. So that's going to have the tear ducts. And there it is, right? So it's up here, it's at the top where we create our tears. And the fluid would wash over the eye and then go down. The nasolacrimal duct drains into the nasal cavity. So what do tears do for you? Or what does that fluid do for you? It's very important, okay? It lubricates the eye. It has antimicrobial properties. It moisturizes the eye. So it's important. And we're blinking. We're constantly releasing the fluid. It's just when you cry, you're releasing more. And that's why the tears come down and so on. So a lacrimal gland, right, located above the outer eye, secretes tears, approximately 12 ducts. This fluid washes across the anterior surface, collected by the lacrimal ducts. Canaliculi, those are the ducts, lacrimal sac, yeah. Nasal lacrimal duct. Okay. FYI, talking about eye growth, how can newborns see? Newborns don't see very well at all, and usually, black and white much better than colored vision. Okay, blah blah. Appear, it says at first eyes blue gray, so they're not, yeah, permanent coloring fixing 6 to 12 months, so it's not until later. Tears don't appear 1 to 3 months because of lacrimal duct. Okay. Depth perception. So again, this is kind of really neat. It's talking about development and vision. Okay. So the internal structure of the eye, okay, the eyeball, so we've already talked about that. The lens, the sclera, the cornea, the iris, ciliary body, okay, the iris, we talked about that, the ciliary body, choroid, inner layer, yes. Now to the back, to the retina. If you go, or when, not if, whenever you go to the optometrist or ophthalmologist, when they look, when they're like, look straight, and they have a light and they're looking in your eye, they can look and they could go back and they can actually see the retina. Fovea centralis, that's the place where there's acute vision, and that's where there's a lot of photoreceptors there. So here, optic disc, that is where the optic nerve is going to exit the eye. And we're talking about the back. So they can look at the blood vessels, they can look if there's any disorders, they can even see possibly if there's brain tumors, they can see the fluid, the pressure in the eye, which can tell them a lot of things. Inner layer, okay, 6 million cone cells. Cone, think CC. Cones are for color. So the cones are for color vision. The rods are for black and white vision. Okay. 120 million rods, rhodopsin, it's a pigment. This is not a physiology class. If it was a physiology class, we would get into how do you actually physically see what's actually happening. We do have a blind spot, right? Blind spot, the absence of rods, cones, where the optic disc creates a blind spot. So here in the back, where there's the optic disc, where the neuron, the optic nerve is leaving, that is our blind spot. It's real. There aren't any photoreceptors there. Lens, colorless crystalline body biconvex, suspended by ligaments, contraction, relaxation of the ciliary muscle controls tension. Function is to sharpen the focus. It really helps when you see the light rays, which we'll see in just a few minutes. The lens, okay, light rays, okay. So how we see. And this is what I already talked about. And again, looking at the picture of the eye, it really helps, but we could go through there. Light rays strike the eye, pass through the cornea, pupil, aqueous humor, lens, vitreous humor. Light rays then reach the retina, stimulate the rods and cones. An upside down image is relayed along nerve impulses to the optic nerve. The images are transferred to the brain, which turns the images right side up, and that's where we see. So we actually see in the brain. So sometimes people get injured and they can get hit in the back of the head and they lose their vision, right? Hopefully it's temporary, right? It can be temporary. And so if we damage that part of the brain, we can lose vision. It could be temporary, it could be long term, right? So showing the light going through, right? And there's the optic nerve. So the optic disc would be right here. The fovea centralis is right here where the sharp, so the lens will bend the light. So the light focuses here, sharpest image. So again, it really helps to look at a picture. Yes. If you look, let's say here's a tree, right? The light's being emitted, going to go through the cornea, go through the pupil, go through the lens. The lens bends the light, and then the light is going to hit the retina. And in reality, it's like a camera. If you guys are familiar with cameras, they flip the image. The lens will flip the image. So it's upside down, goes through the nerves, goes to the brain, and the visual cortex will turn it right side up and we'll actually see the image. Astigmatism, if you've ever heard that, people with astigmatism have a hard time with their peripheral vision. So A, without, we know that. Stigma, point. Ism, condition. So they have a hard time with peripheral vision, and it has to do with the shape of the eyeball. Blepharoptosis, eyelid prolapse, drooping eyelid. Okay. Here, cataracts. What is that? Okay, it has to do with the lens and when the lens gets cloudy. Okay, in the past, cataracts caused blindness. Now we're so lucky we have surgery and we can fix it. Okay, and many people have cataract surgery to fix it to get nice, beautiful vision. Oh, let's see. I thought this, okay, it doesn't talk about it. It doesn't say more about it. Okay. Let me go there really quickly. In your book on page 570, they talk about cataracts, and there's actually, they talk about cataract surgery also. It says opacity of the crystalline lens or its capsule most often occurs in all older adults. The most common symptoms of cataracts: cloudy, blurry vision, problems with light, including headlights that seem too bright at night, glare from lamps or very bright sunlight, and seeing a halo around lights, colors that seem faded, poor night vision, double or multiple vision, frequent needed for changes in eyeglasses or contact lens prescription. So there is surgery now. It's really lovely. It's really strange to think, because a patient is awake when they do this surgery, and there's a laser that cuts into the cornea, will take out the lens and put in a new lens, right? So it's really kind of creepy to think that someone would be doing surgery on a patient while they're awake. But they do that, and they do numb the eye, of course. Okay. Conjunctivitis, that would be inflammation of the conjunctive membrane. Redness, white or inner eyelid, thick yellow discharge, crest over eyelashes. Maybe you've experienced this before. Eye discharge, itchy burning eyes, blurred vision, sensitivity to light. So we can treat this with antibiotics. It depends on what the issue is. Oh, conjunctivitis, cause based on cause, antibiotic eye drops, ointments for bacterial infection, antihistamines, NSAIDs, right, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, corticosteroids, foreign matter removed if that's the cause. So going in and getting that. Glaucoma. Now, glaucoma is one of the leading causes of blindness. Okay, so what is happening? It says there's different forms of glaucoma. It has to do with pressure, right? It says vision, let's see, affects people of all ages. Regular exams are very important, includes measurement of the intraocular pressure. If glaucoma is recognized early, vision loss can be slowed or prevented, but once lost, it cannot be recovered. And that's why going to the optometrist or going to the ophthalmologist is really important, because they're going to look at that. They're going to look at the pressure, the fluid in the eyeball. They're going to look at that pressure. So glaucoma, accumulation of aqueous humor in the anterior chamber. There's an anterior chamber of the eye, pressure to build, resulting eventually loss of vision. Shows two forms of glaucoma. Okay, so they show that. Yeah. So if it's caught early, it could be treated. If it's not, and there's vision loss, that cannot be fixed. So really important. So it shows kind of if a person has glaucoma, right? So you can see this darkness that's going around. Laser surgery, right? They could do laser surgery. They could do medication to help. Hyper, what does that mean? Okay, beyond opia, we're talking about sight or vision. So here we are talking about right, the inability to see, right? And so hyperopia, or also known as farsightedness, right? So if we look, you're looking, and the lens is bending the light, but the image is going up here, not back to the retina. So when we wear corrective lenses like glasses, they would bend the light before this bend, and then that way the light can actually focus on the retina. And that's what lenses do. So myopia is the inability to lengthen the focal distance adequately for distant objects, make the image wait a minute. Did I do the right one? Hang on. Oh, hyperopia was that one. I'm sorry, I didn't even see that. Myopia, they just changed to myopia and I wasn't even looking. So myopia, that is talking about nearsightedness. I didn't even check that when I was looking at the book. So is the inability to lengthen focal distance adequately, making image retina blurry. This condition can be corrected by placing the biconcave lens. So with myopia, we're talking about nearsightedness, okay? Hyperopia, we're talking about farsightedness, and it looks like they don't have a picture. They do have a picture in the book. For farsightedness, hyperopia, it's on page 574. For myopia, it's on page 576. Macular degeneration. Okay, that is another leading cause for blindness, okay? Two types, it says dry and wet. Dry atrophy, that's kind of wasting away, degeneration of the retinal cells. Okay, so the person's going blind and there's no fix for it. Wet form results from growth of new vascular oozing exudative blood vessels under the retina. And what ends up happening is the retina starts to degenerate. And again, that's one of the leading causes of blindness. They talk about it in your book, and they talk about it on page 575. It says macular degeneration or age-related macular degeneration is a leading cause of vision loss in Americans 55 and older. It causes severe loss of central vision, right in the front, but peripheral vision is retained. It blurs the sharp central vision one needs for straight-ahead activities such as reading, sewing, driving. It does not cause any pain. So, again, there's no treatment for this. It says there's no treatment for the dry form. The wet form results from growth, okay? For the other form, the wet form, they can do laser surgery. They can do injections. And again, they need to, early detection is really important. The treatment can slow the vision, but it does not restore vision. So, yeah. Now here, this is, I wish they had this next to the cataract. So with the cataract, so if the lens is cloudy, they can go in and do surgery. So this is on page 577. They show the going in, right, cutting through, taking out the lens, and then putting in the new lens, right? And there it is, bam, new lens, okay? It's just this very strange thought to think that someone's doing surgery on the eye. But you have to remember, before this surgery, people actually went blind from cataracts. Now with this surgery, people can restore their vision. So it's pretty revolutionary. Computer vision syndrome. Did you know, right? Using computers, using phones and so on. It says when eye or vision problems relate to heavy use of digital devices, it can happen because it causes eye strain, decreased vision, burning, stinging, photophobia. So what can we do about it? Do 20-20-20 rule, 20-second break every 20 minutes, view something 20 feet away. So kind of giving your eyes that break. Retinal detachment, that can happen. It can happen quickly, okay? If someone has a blow to the head, it could be physical trauma that can cause the retina to separate, okay? It's a problem, okay? Because the retina, that's where the photoreceptors are. The choroid layer, that's where the vasculature is. And if those layers separate, now this area, the cells can start to die, okay? So it's really important to catch that early to fix it. And they can fix it. It says separation of retina from choroid layer can be caused by trauma or can spontaneously occur. Unfortunately, in my lifetime, I've known 2 people that's happened to. And it wasn't due to trauma, it just happened. So again, they can do surgery and they can fix it. They could do pressure. The person has to lay and be still for a long period of time so that the retina can fix itself and heal. Okay. Okay. Diabetes, having issues with diabetes, yes. It affects the eye, right? Diabetes does this. One of the bad symptoms is people can go blind from diabetes. So retinopathy and a disease of the retina in the United States. Diabetic retinopathy is the leading cause of the new blindness of people 20 to 74. Yeah. Here, tonometer, this is what measures for intraocular pressure, looking at the pressure in the eye. So drugs for the eye, right? So things to help with glaucoma, so people can take certain medications to help with that. Okay. To dilate the pupil, if you've ever gone to the optometrist, they dilate, they can relax the pupil so they can look into the eye and look at the retina. Antibiotics, it depends if someone has an infection. So there's different types. It says antibiotics, antifungal, antiviral. It depends what the issue is. If there's some kind of infection in the eye. Color vision tests, we can look at that because some people are colorblind, right? So look at this picture. There's red and there's actually green. Well, if you're colorblind, the most common form of colorblindness is red-green colorblindness. And I don't know if you could see it. Can you see a number in there? Okay. If you have normal vision, you could see there's a 2 and a 7, so it's 27. If someone's colorblind, they cannot distinguish between the red and the green. They don't see the number. It's more common in males than in females because it's an X-linked sex trait. All right, some lab tests, examining the anterior chamber, okay, measuring the cornea, ultrasonography, looking at that ophthalmoscopy, visual acuity. We're talking about the eye chart, seeing, like the 20/20 vision, and then finally abbreviations. All right, so we just finished the chapter on vision and eyes. So people, next week, okay, or this week, I guess, I'm going to put this up on Sunday. So this week on Thursday, we're going to have our exam, okay? Again, it'll be on chapters, I don't remember, were they 13 through 16? I believe that was the case. Yeah, I think so, 13 through 16. I'll check that. Sorry about that. So be ready, and I'll put an announcement, and I think I said it in the beginning of the other video. All right, see y'all later. Bye.